Hi, today I'm going to look at the transfer of data from a browser to a web server. So in the normal operation of a website, of course, we need to pass parameters and things, form information and that type of thing from the user's browser into the web server. Now I'm not talking about the URLs here because we know that they have to flow, but what I'm talking about is the other data that gets passed into the program that executes for a particular page. So we have 5 different methods. We've listed them there: cookie data, a couple of query string possibilities, posting data as the body of a post message, and then actually authentication data. And I have a system set up with a small wiki. It's an internal wiki that we use at work, and I'm accessing it actually via a VPN. So let's just try and set up our trace. Now, because I'm using a VPN, I'm going to use Microsoft Network Monitor rather than Wireshark to trace this. So let's start that running. Then we go to the wiki page, and I've got to the point where I'm just about to log in. So I've filled in the user's name and I've filled in a password, and I hit login. Okay, and that should be enough to show us almost everything we want to see. So let's go back to the trace and we'll stop the trace. Now here's the post command that posted the login information into the website. First thing we can see is that here's the URL. It will be the site name /w/index.php. The question mark is the end of the URL, and what follows the question mark is the query string. And so we can see that we have a query string in this case, indicating some parameters that will be passed into the wiki code that actually drives the wiki site. So that's the first thing. Then we come down a bit further. I'm going to skip the cookie information for the moment. I want to show you the actual payload. And in the payload, we can see that there's the username that I filled in the form. Rather worryingly, we can see the password, and then some other parameters which would have been hidden parameters on the page. So there we've seen 2 different ways. We've seen the query string on the post command, and we've seen the payload actually in the post command as well. Sorry, the post method, I should use the correct terminology. So let's go on to the response. Here's the response to that. In fact, it's redirecting our browser to another page because we've got a 302 here. But what I wanted to show you was just here. Here we're setting cookie information. So you can see of particular interest is a session ID. This enables the wiki to maintain context information about the user. So here we've got a long string of characters representing the session ID for this wiki session now that we're logged in. Now, because it did a redirect 302 here, it's redirecting us to another page, and it's redirecting us to this location here because this happened to be the last page I displayed before I logged out and logged back in. And here we see the get for that page. And the thing I wanted to show you here is the fact that we have the cookie information that was set earlier, and here's that same session ID, same user ID, and this information will now be sent with every single get or post call until someone resets that particular cookie value, or if it's a session cookie, until we close the browser. So just to recap, we've seen the browser transferring data to the web server using cookie data. We've seen post method query string data, and we've seen post method data. So that leaves us with 2 others: get method query string and authentication data. And I'm going to use a different application to look at these. And in fact, I'm also going to, rather than use Netmon, this particular little test server that I'm going to use is running on my local area network in my study. So let's just look at this with Wireshark locally. I'm putting in this filter just so that I only view HTTP traffic with which is carrying TCP payload. So let's get that started. Now let's go to a browser. This is the address of my server. This is the authentication box that I wanted to show you. So let's put in the data into this. I click on OK. That gets me into the website and into the application, and now I'm just going to click on one of the links. You can see down here at the bottom, if you look, you can see the actual query string after the question mark. QID equals pools Q. So let's click on that, and now let's go back to our Wireshark trace. We'll stop that, and here we go. So when I first started to try to access the root page of the website, the web server returns a 401 authorization required, and it's when the browser receives that 401, that's when it puts up the dialog box to prompt me for a user ID and password. So if we look at this packet here, this is interesting, because this is the packet that resulted from me filling in the user ID and password and then clicking on the OK button. And you notice that it doesn't actually post the data back to the website. It's a GET request, but if we look in the header, what we find, there's my user ID and password in clear text. And then we've got a couple of redirects, 302s, and I want to show you this packet, this GET method call here. First thing to notice is it's a GET method and it has a query string, user ID equals pool O. If we come down here though, you also notice that the credentials are again carried in this particular GET request. Now every time we do a GET request to a page, we will see those credentials, because that's the only way that the website in this case knows that it's me who's accessing the system. So if you like, rather than having the session cookie that we saw, session ID cookie that we saw in the other system, in this case every time we send a request we send the user's credentials. So here's another one where I clicked on the Q summary button and you can see the same credentials. So that's it. Those are the 5 methods. They're worth knowing. There are other ways of transferring data from a browser to a website, but typically they'll involve running some active component in the web browser. But for basic transfer of data, you've now seen the 5 methods. See you soon.